What do you see?
Hello. Since era, Isaiah. Madison, you weren't here in person yesterday, right? Okay. Just checking because Kevin Patton had sent me the attendance, and since you're usually there, I just wanted to make sure that that was not a mistake. Okay, we're going to talk today for a little bit about how TV makes you smarter, or whether it does. I think that was like a pretty interesting article, and kind of made me think of things in made me think of some things in sort of a different way. So the first thing is Johnson talks a lot about the sleeper curve. What exactly does that mean? What is the sleeper curve, and how does that relate to TV programs, shows? What is the sleeper curve? Any thoughts? Any ideas? I'm looking back to see if there's like a distinct definition. Oh, okay. Here we go. He says, this is what I call the sleeper curve, the most debased forms of mass diversion, video games and violent television dramas and juvenile sitcoms turn out to be nutritional after all. So I don't necessarily know why he calls it the sleeper curve, but I think overall it's sort of that idea that the stuff that we've kind of been told is negative or harmful, like violent video games and violent TV shows, turns out that they're actually kind of good for us, or like, you know, they're not rotting our brains. They're actually kind of like helping us. And what was his argument? Like, how does stuff like that make us smarter?
Wait, where did you see that?
Basically,
It's on page 2. It's like the bottom of, like his definition is like the bottom of the first paragraph where he says, "This is what I call the sleeper curve, the most debased form."
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for interrupting, Julius. I forgot what I was gonna say. Hold on.
I was asking, like,
basically,
how does he make it? Like, how is it beneficial to us?
Yeah, but like smart TV shows that, you know, kind of cause you to pay more attention. They require you to pay more attention. They kind of, I guess, like train your brain in a way to develop critical thinking skills to analyze the plot.
Yeah, I think you're.
And it's a lot more active in modern times than it used to be.
Yeah, there's like a lot more going on in the plots of shows that we're watching now, whereas like the shows that they were making reference to from like the 60s, 70s, 80s would all kind of be like, you have your main characters, you know what their sort of story is, but like each episode is these characters dealing with this problem, and then the next episode is the same characters dealing with a different problem, and you don't have to really like know what's going on from previous episodes in order to pick up on what's going on in one you're watching. Like, you wouldn't even necessarily have to watch them in order because there's not that much plot continuity. Whereas now, if you look at a show like Game of Thrones or like Grey's Anatomy, something like that, that's been, you know, multiple seasons, and you have these characters that you're really invested in. If you watch one like several seasons in, you're gonna be like, who are these people? What's their deal? Like, how is everybody connected? And even I think about like if you watch a show now from the beginning, and then you see an episode of it later, you're like, wait, how have all these relationships changed? And like, how has all this stuff changed from what it was in the beginning? And if you don't have that continuity, if you're not watching all of it, then it can really throw you for a loop. There's a lot more like involved plot lines now, which, yeah, it really does help sort of exercise our brains because there's just more to keep track of. And we would sort of think that a lot of stuff from years past would be sort of boring now because we're used to having to keep up with all these things that are going on. And if you watch an episode of like whatever their examples were, MASH or whatever, it might be kind of dull. So what arguments does this author make regarding popular media? I might have just kind of walked you to the door on some of that, but how should people respond to that? What are the arguments and how should people respond to them?
What was the question?
What are his main arguments here?
Oh,
and how
I
are
thought you said your.
respond to them?
Okay.
Oh.
Okay. I thought. Okay.
Okay.
A lot of the of more modern media and stuff like that, it's a purpose to both like entertain, and it kind of has like an underlying effect where positive benefits will come as a result of it. Like violent video games is one of them that he mentions. Like, sorry, I'm shifting around because I'm uncomfortable.
You're fine.
But basically, right at the end, my cat's throwing up. I'm just gonna.
I'm kind of scrolling back through it myself. So I'm looking at the bottom of page 10, and he says specifically what he's not arguing, and I think we can kind of determine from that what he is arguing, in pointing out some of the ways that popular culture has improved our minds. I'm not arguing that parents should stop paying attention to the way their children amuse themselves. What I am arguing for is a change in the criteria we use to determine what really is cognitive junk food and what's genuinely nourishing. Instead of a show's violent or tawdry content, instead of wardrobe malfunctions of the F word, the true test should be whether a given show engages or sedates the mind. That's an interesting idea. And the examples they give is like, if you want your kids to watch reality TV, encourage them to watch Survivor over Fear Factor. If they want to watch a mystery show, encourage 24 over Law and Order. And I guess this sort of, I don't really understand the video game references, so those don't affect me as much. I guess because like 24 does have a narrative that you have to watch over multiple episodes, that kind of like builds as it goes. And I haven't watched either of those shows, but from what I understand, Law and Order is more like episodic. Like you could watch one and not be lost. As far as reality TV goes, Survivor over Fear Factor, I don't know that I think one of them is like more nourishing than another. That's also like not really the kind of reality show that I watch. I'm like, I just been watching actually on Netflix. They just put on 2 seasons of this MTV show, Are You the One? And it's garbage. It's absolute garbage, but like it's fun to watch, and it does kind of like, I just wonder if the author would think that that was like nourishing, or is it garbage? Because you do have to kind of like watch from one episode to the next and like get invested in these people who are playing the game. I don't know. I kind of don't think of reality shows as being nourishing for the mind, but
Yeah, I feel like they're more just like so that you don't have to think about it too much.
yeah,
If anything, like you just have to watch and observe. You don't really have to think about like what's going on.
yeah, like there's not a lot to follow.
Yeah.
There was also a bit in the passage where he was talking about how like some of these movies and some of these TV shows, they kind of like spell out what's happening to the viewer. He used like a warning sign metaphor.
Yeah.
Like whenever describing the movie Scream, there's a part where like a girl leaves a door unlocked, and then it's very obvious that the door is unlocked and something's going to come from that afterwards.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what happens.
Particularly like nourishing for our brains, because they're just like walking us to the door on it every time.
Yeah. If you come to the conclusion of like, oh, the door's locked, something bad's going to happen by yourself, then yeah, that's nourishing. But if it's just like spelling it out for you that the door is locked, that the door is unlocked, then it's not really that beneficial in any way.
Yeah. That's like the brain rotting kind of entertainment. So one of these questions, I feel like we've sort of talked about it, but what evidence from historical and contemporary television does Johnson use to support his claims? We were just talking about several of them. Like Tom just brought up the thing from Scream. That was kind of an example of, something that is not particularly nourishing or like important for us to watch because we're not having to think about it at all. He uses a bunch of examples of like older TV shows. Bonanza. I remember him talking about Bonanza, which I grew up watching that and loving it, but I suppose it's not particularly nourishing. All these like late 70s shows like Dallas, which I've never watched Dallas. I didn't realize that was more like episodic, and it didn't. I guess because anytime anybody mentions that show, what you hear about is the whole thing about like who shot JR, and that like when that came on in the late 70s or whenever, everybody was like glued to the TV waiting to find out. But I guess for the most part, that wasn't like a show that really built on the plot. I think that's kind of the big thing, is like whether you have to pay attention in order to get it. So do you guys agree with him? Like, is this a sound argument? Did you take any issue with it? What did y'all think overall of his argument?
I feel like overall the argument is kind of like the point is there, and I sort of agree with it, but a lot of the things that he references to back up his argument kind of don't really make a lot of sense. Like live action stuff in the video game stuff, that's not really a great example. My cat's meowing.
I heard that.
That's not really a great example. I guess like intellectual media to consume. If he would like promote movies, I don't know when this was written, but if you promoted like a movie like Parasite or something where you really have to focus and it catches you off guard, or like other shows where you kind of need multiple rewatches to understand fully what's going on, those kind of things would probably elevate his point a lot better than using the show Survivor as intelligent media.
Yeah, that makes sense. Can you guys kind of, I don't know if you can or not, but like, I didn't really understand any of the video game references he made, just because like other than Crash Bandicoot, I've like never really played video games. So what did y'all take away from this as far as like what constitutes a video game that would be like intellectually engaging versus one that's just like garbage?
Julius and into this one.
Okay, shut up, Tom. Anyways, I don't really know about examples that he gave because I can't find them. I don't know what they are.
The only one that I just saw was like at the end he said that you should play Grand Theft Auto over Quake, and I've literally never even heard of Quake. So
I don't know about Quake, but Grand Theft Auto.
Quake is kind of like very fast paced. It's not designed to have a thought behind it. It's kind of like Call of Duty, but you go very fast and you kill everything instantly. But Grand Theft Auto is a lot more story driven. There are a lot more options. You can choose what to do.
Yeah, Grand Theft Auto in general, I mean, there is a storyline, but also it's what is known as an open world game, so you can do basically whatever you want.
Could you define
as long as
in the chat?
What?
You heard me?
No, I didn't. You cut out.
Oh. Could you define open world and for the game define open world?
Yeah, I was going to. Basically, you can do, like, you don't have to follow the quest line, and you can see me because I was doing quotation marks. But you don't really have to follow the quest line. You can just do whatever you want as long as, you can do it in the game.
Okay, so like the only sort of current or modern video game I have any knowledge of would be Red Dead Redemption. That would be like
Sure.
open world.
I think so. Yeah, that you can definitely. Yeah, definitely.
You go off and like do other things. Like you have goals you're supposed to do. It doesn't really matter like what
Right.
you do them in.
That's actually funny because I'm pretty sure Red Dead Redemption is similar to Grand Theft Auto in the way that it's like open world, but also you have the main quest line. Um, it's just like older and Western.
Cars.
Yeah.
But I think going back to what I said earlier, those games are really high thought per se.
Mhm.
Like you don't need to think too much, because with the open world thing, like you can do whatever you want, so that kind of pushes your creativity, but it doesn't take a lot of thought to do most of the stuff that you can do, regardless of if it's like to benefit the story. I think like story-based games, those require a little bit more thought.
Mhm.
And then games that
Yeah.
have like a lot of lore or
Yeah.
kind of more of an atmosphere surrounding it. Those would probably be a better.
A better example of what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and more problem solving. Like it is open world, but the quest line aspect is fairly linear. Like you know what you have to do, it's telling you what to do.
Mhm.
A lot of older games actually, a lot of older open world games, um, you have to really pay attention. And I'm thinking of Oblivion. You really have to pay attention to what it's saying, and like you have to know you have to know the surroundings. Because there isn't like any indication of where you're supposed to go except for like descriptions and names of
Okay.
places.
Well, that kind of makes sense.
I think combat-oriented games would have been like a better example to use instead of, because with those games, I guess it doesn't necessarily have a plot, but you still have to think while playing the game. And then like certain combat games like King of Fighters, you have to memorize the move list. So like you have to memorize all the controls.
Okay. And you have to like make decisions about what you want to do and like how you want to
Make combinations of the moves or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
a
a
good
good
point.
point. Hey, shut up, Tom. I said that first.
I was first. There was lag.
Actually, I said it first. Anyways, that was a good point. So yeah, I said it twice, so I'm right.
That's a good point. Yeah, and I saw it in the chat, Madison, he said it's like his argument's pretty good, but he could have used better examples and like focus on plots and symbolism and actual facts.
Yeah, like I feel like I get more knowledge watching episodes of SpongeBob than I do watching like Law and Order.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I guess it also depends on like what kind of knowledge, because maybe you could like pick up on stuff like if you watched a lot of Law and Order, you might pick up on a lot of like legal terms and procedures and stuff, but like how are you gonna actually use that in real life? Like how is that useful to you? And it's like probably not gonna be. But then again, like I've watched Grey's Anatomy for 16 seasons and I feel like I'm a doctor, so I don't know. Okay. Sorry, I think I just interrupted somebody.
I guess shows or whatever that don't necessarily have a meaning, like not a meaning, but like a fully defined like message to it, so it's open-ended where you have to like, interpret what's going on.
Mhm.
Would be better.
I was just gonna say that.
Cringe.
Okay.
She said it first, so yeah.
I was thinking it first.
There's no way to prove that.
No way to prove it.
That was my thought 10 hours ago, so pretty sure you're wrong. Anyways,
Prove it.
but yeah, like autistic media, it's kind of underrepresented in both this and like I guess just shows that require you to think critically.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Okay. Were there any other like examples that you guys were thinking about when we read it yesterday that either supported his argument or refuted it?
He said the Simpsons for like whenever describing like complicated narratives,
Yeah.
which I found kind of because he put it after Lost, The Sopranos, and that's
One of these things doesn't belong. I've never watched The Simpsons before, actually. I've never seen an episode, but I hear so many good things about it. I mean, maybe this is just a big Simpsons fan, but you know, that I mean, I have heard that they like predict a lot of things that have happened in the world. But yeah, from what I can pick up on just from pop culture, it doesn't seem like an incredibly complicated narrative.
There's not really a narrative. It's episodic in nature.
Okay.
It's like putting South Park on the level is like I don't know shows. I don't watch a lot of TV.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know when this was written either. It probably says somewhere. 2011? Nope, just kidding. That's just page 10 of 11. But yeah, I definitely thought, 2005. I definitely thought about Game of Thrones because that's been obviously like one of the biggest shows in the last several years. And I think that would definitely be one that he would consider to be more like intellectually stimulating, just because there's so much to follow and like things that you think aren't important and then they come back up later on in the show. Stuff like that. I feel like anytime there's a narrative that you have to, that like picks back up later on, that's definitely a thing that is maybe intellectually stimulating. It's always so satisfying to be like, oh shoot, they talked about this 3 seasons ago and like we thought this was not going to be anything and now it's a huge part of the plot. That's always really satisfying. Any other like general thoughts about this?
I like it.
You like it?
Yeah.
Thumbs up from Madison. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I thought it was, it kind of made me look at things from a different perspective, just because like reality shows in general, I don't ever consider to be like intellectually stimulating. Like we said a few minutes ago, it's kind of just something that you like put on and don't have to focus on. But I guess this sort of made me think about something my high school history teacher said, which was that it's better to read like trash tabloids than not to read anything at all, because then at least you're giving your brain some kind of exercise. And I feel like this is kind of a similar idea. Like it's better to watch something where you have to like follow the plot and figure out characters and like pay attention to a narrative rather than to watch something that is like doesn't do any of that and is just like on to be entertaining. All right, well, if nobody has any other insights or takeaways from that, because I missed yesterday, which is when we would have done the discussion, I'm gonna kind of double up on a couple of things tomorrow because I'm gonna give you some new pages with stuff about plagiarism and documentation, and those I think are the last quizzes that will, like at the very end of the course there'll be one quiz that's like all the stuff we learned, but I think that these two will be the last quizzes until that last one. So your 2 quizzes are due tomorrow, the academic tone and sexism, or whatever it is, stereotypes and sexist language. Those are due tomorrow. So we'll go over these new pages and I'll unlock those new quizzes. And then if you have not yet finished those 2 quizzes, you'll have time to do that. So, and yeah, your essay is due like 2 weeks from yesterday. So it's starting to happen. Let me know if you guys do meet with our tutor or if you talk to somebody from the Writing Center, just so that I can give you guys the credit for having done that. Okay, well, that's about it for today then, and I will see you guys tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adios.
Adios.